Hey guys, and welcome to /X Games. So a couple months ago when I was developing Element Earth, I ran into a pretty big problem. So what I needed was to enable players to pause their game and then return to it at any other point in time, whether they had switched their phones off or not, or whether they had just switched off the game. So this meant I had to, in some way, save the game. Now, even though the game seems rather simple, there were a whole lot of other mechanisms in play that meant I couldn't just use GameMaker's default game save and game load functionality. I had to save and load exactly what I needed when I needed it, and nothing more and nothing less. So I developed a really cool system of doing things that I'm now going to be introducing to all of you that I hope you can use in your game and tweak and improve upon. So in order to demonstrate this concept, I've created a small game that is pretty basic, and we're going to be saving its current state and loading its current state at different points in time. I'm going to show you how easy it is for you to grab whatever objects you need to save and load them later. So here we go, we have a main menu. This says new game. If a game already exists, a save game, then this will actually change to continue. So let's go new game, and I'm going to show you exactly what we need to do. At the top left here we have our score, it's on 0. We have our player, he can move left and right. He can jump, he can duck, he can do everything that the platform physics say he can. We've also got these spinning saws. Let's assume that's some sort of trap. And then there exist these pellets that he has to consume in order to score points. Pretty simple. And there the score goes up every pellet he touches. So now what happens if the player pushes escape? Well, in any game that doesn't have any save or load functionality, it pretty much just destroys everything and the game restarts. Now what we're going to do is grab the current state of all these instances of all the different kinds of objects and save them to any sort of data file that we can think of. And then later on, when the game is loaded, all we're going to do is simply destroy everything that's currently in the game, all these instances, and instead recreate them using the properties we have saved. And then one thing we must remember is that when the player interacts with something that would ultimately end the game, we want to destroy that save. So let's go to the project file and show you what we've got here. So in our sprites, we've just got the player's sprites there. We've got some menu buttons. We've got some world objects. That's our block. Here's our pellet and the saw blade. So that spins around. Backgrounds, we just have a tile set and the main menu. In scripts, we have platform mechanics. If you'd like to learn more about the platform mechanics, check out the videos in the banner as well as in the description. I also have a script game over, which in this case sets the score to 0 and sends us back to the main menu. And I have a script called SCR string split. I'll show you exactly how I'll use that later. Credits to this individual who created it. And then I've got a font. In our objects, we've got a controller, which just draws the score. Also sends us to the main menu when we push escape. Our player, which has the platform physics, he also increases the score when he interacts with the pellet, and in this case calls the script game over when he interacts with the saw. It's also game over, I think, if he finds himself outside of the room, so he falls down a crevasse of some kind. Then we have a pellet, which is basically object that bobs up and down. We give it a random direction and a random speed when we start, and then it does its thing. The saw blade just rotates, waiting for the player to touch it. There we go. And then we have the play button and the exit button. And then in our room, we have the two rooms, the main menu and the game world. And the game world just looks like this. So as you can see, I've got some saw blades, I've got some pellets in there, and the rest is just the environment. Pretty cool stuff. Okay, so first things first. Pretend this is your current game. I'm going to take you through what you need to do to save your instances and then load them at a later stage. So let's say that when the player is in the game world and he pushes the escape key, that it's going to save the game. Now you can put the code I'm going to show you in anything. It could be a checkpoint, it could be at the button click on some sort of submenu. But anyway, let's go into Object Controller. So right now we've got a draw GUI, which draws the score. We've also got the press escape, which sends us to the main menu. But before we go to the main menu, let us execute something we're going to call SCR save. Okay, so we're going to be creating a script called SCR save. In there we're going to execute other scripts that do the saving on a more granular level, like save the player, save all the pellets, save the traps, that kind of thing, or save the score, etc. So just to organize everything, let us create a group here called save and load. And in that group, let's create a group called save. And in that folder, let's create scr save. Okay, so let us just accept that for now. So at this point in time, let's think about what happens when it's game over. So in the game over script, we just pretty much reset the score and go to the main menu. But what we also need to do in my case, in this game's case, because the user only has one life and can only load so long as he's alive, I'm saying that when he does die, when he falls out of the map or he collides with the saw blade, that his save game then gets deleted. So let's add some code to this game over that'll essentially clean up our saved games. Let's do that after score and before room menu. scr save cleanup, that's what we're going to call it. Let's just copy that. And let's put it in here. There we go. In here we'll say, well, if file player save exists, then delete player save, and etc, etc, to make sure that on our next playthrough there's absolutely no leftover save games sitting in the file structure. Now what happens if a save game does exist? Well, earlier I said that our play button will change to something along the lines of continue if the user has a save game, because when you are in the main menu and the save game exists, it's going to take you straight to your last save game. So in our menu, if we go play, here I've got a subimage called continue. So it's going to be subimage 0 when there are no save games present, and subimage 1 when you can continue. So let's go to object button play, into the create. Currently it just sets it to index 0, so here let's say if we need some way of checking all the files, because there could be multiple saves. Remember, there's going to be one for the player, one for the global variables, there's going to be one for the traps, one for all those little pellet things. So let's say, well, if scr save check, this is going to be another function that we're going to create that's going to return a boolean, so true or false, if the save game exists. And let's put an else in there. So if save check returns true, then we're going to say, okay, so the save is present, so image index equals 1, else 0. And let's go and create that over there and save for now. So far things are coming along quite nicely. We don't have anything to do with loading, so let's think about what happens when we do need to do loading. And remember, this is all the skeleton. I haven't shown you exactly what to do yet to get this to work, but it's good to have things in place so that when we do have the more granular saving and loading, everything will just work. So let's think about it. In our main menu, our play button is going to change depending on if there's a save game or not. But if we click that, it's just going to take us to the game world. But we actually want to do some loading as soon as we arrive, so that as far as the user is concerned, the room was built depending on his save game and not just altered. So let's go into room game world to create event. And right now there's nothing in here. So let's add some code. Again, F, and we can say scr save check. So if a save game exists, do something, otherwise do something else. So if it exists, well then we're going to say with object saw, which is one of the traps, all of the traps in fact, we're going to say instance destroy. This may seem strange, but there is a method behind this madness. Here we're going to say with object pellet, which is the one we collide with to get points, also instance destroy. You're probably wondering why I'm doing that. Well, think about it this way. If we save the state of an instance of a trap, object saw, and this piece of code runs, and we run here at the end something along the lines of scr load, then what it's doing is loading all our traps, all our pellets, all of these things that the player would interact with, and then it's creating new ones on top of every one of these ones, and that's going to cause duplicates. So instead what we're doing is every instance that we'll be saving, or would have saved before, let's destroy it, and then we're going to let our script save at a later stage handle recreating those objects where they need to be created. So actually we don't need this else. Let's go into script load, let's copy that, let's create that script now. Let's create a new group here called load. And there it is, script load. Here we're getting to the meat and potatoes. Let's start off with our player. So in script save, I'm going to say scr save player. Okay, so let's create this script, and this is going to handle just saving of the player. There it is. And there's certain things that we need to do in here, but before we do that, let's take a look at the player object and the properties of it that we need to preserve. So in object player, he follows the platform game physics, which means in his create event, he's got actually quite a lot of variables here. Gravity, speed, jump speed, h speed, v speed, state, direction, jumping, falling, and the rest. So we need to make sure that these variables are all saved in some sort of file, and then later when this player is recreated, we can give those values back to him, and in essence, it'll be like he never left. Just to reassure ourselves that there will be no corruption between saves, perhaps the game crashed and didn't get to delete all those saves on the cleanup, we're going to say if file exists, well, let's call this player.sav, file delete, and the same name. Okay, so if the save game already exists, delete it, because we are now creating a new save. Then let's actually create the file. Var save file equals file text open, and we are writing, and that name, there it is. So there we have opened the file or created it. In this case, because we delete the file always before we run this, it'll always create this file. Then we're going to get our player. Let's just say open file. Here's get player. Var instance equals instance find object player, and it's the first instance of object player, which in this case is 0. Then I'm going to create a DS map, which is pretty much just going to be of all the player's properties. Then I'm going to be converting this DS map to JSON. JSON is JavaScript object notation. It's a lightweight data interchange format. So ultimately we're going to be taking all the properties in object player and converting them to a string that at a later stage we can convert back into the player object. It's going to be really cool, so I'll show you exactly how that works and what the structure of that looks like as soon as we do that first save. Here we're going to write that JSON structure to the file, and we're going to close file over there. So that is the plan of action. Delete file if exists. Alright, so delete file done, open file done, get player done. Create DS map, well, var instance map equals DS map create. Don't forget to actually destroy this later, perhaps after we've converted it. I'm going to say DS map add. To which DS map? Well, the instance map. What do we wish to add? A key called x and a value called instance.x. Okay, so we are taking the player's x coordinate, shoving it into the instance map at the key x, and we can do this for every single one of these properties. So the next one will be y. There it is. There it is. Next one, let's go for image speed. Let's grab the player's image speed. Next one, let's say image angle, and grab the player's image angle. Next one, image index, grab the player's image index. Now let's save those custom properties of our player. So let's go back to them and see what they look like. Here's one called grav. So it's the instance is grav, the instance was the player, and let's store it in the same key. And next was spd. Let's do the same thing, call it spd, instance.spd. And I'm going to speed this up, but we're going to be doing that for every single one of these properties. And just like that, we are adding every property of this instance to the instance map. So I can accept that. Back over here. Now it's time to convert this DS map to JSON. Very simple. I'm going to say var JSON instance equals JSON encode. And our instance map is the target there. Cool. So just like that, we have turned this DS map into a JSON object. Write that JSON to file. File, text, write, string. So remember, JSON is a string. Save file. What do we want to save to the file? The JSON instance. And then file, text close. Which file do we want to close? The save file. And that's simply how it's done. Delete the file if it exists. Open our file for saving. Get the player instance or any instance we want to save. Create a DS map. And add all the instances properties to that map. Convert that DS map to JSON. And then write that JSON to file and close the file. So that's how you save our player. So let me now create script load player. And we're going to be decoding that JSON string and creating a new player object and giving it all the right properties. So in script load, I'm going to be creating a script called scr load player, just like that. And let's go create that now. There it is. Now step 1, only load the player if the file exists. That was called player.sav. So if it does exist, we need to find out what's our load file. Well, our load file is going to be the same as our save file, obviously. File, text, open, read, player.sav, and there we go. So now that we've opened the file for reading, let's extract that JSON object, which is essentially one long string. Var player JSON equals file text read string from the load file, right over there. And now that we have that JSON representation of the player, we can turn it back into a DS map and extract the values that we'll need to reconstruct our player. Var player map equals JSON decode, pass in the player JSON. I was just thinking about maps. I don't think I destroyed this DS map. DS map destroy, and let's go there. Don't forget that, otherwise you're going to have a memory leak. Cool. Okay, back to load. Okay, we are decoding that JSON object into the player map. Next thing, let's extract our values. Var x equals ds map find value. It's the player map, and the key is x. So now you know why we saved it as x. And let's do these for all the other ones. Underscore y equals player map y. Underscore image speed equals image speed. Underscore image angle equals image angle. Underscore image index equals the key with image index, and the same for all those custom variables. One was gravity, which is the same as grav. I'm going to speed this up, but I'm going to be doing the same for all the properties that exist in the object player. There we go. So we've extracted all our values of our player from that player map. So the next thing we need to do is actually set up our player. So with object player. Let's say x equals underscore x, y equals underscore y, image speed, well, that equals underscore image speed, image angle equals underscore image angle, image index equals underscore image index, grav equals underscore grav, and so on. So there we have it. We are taking the object player that exists in our room and we're giving him all the properties that were stored in that file. So then let's say file text close, and that was the load file right there. And also let's make sure we destroy this player map, because that's a DS map right over there. DS map destroy, bam bam bam, fantastic. Okay, so let's actually see if this will work. Okay, let's see. Actually, let's go into game world, create code. Let's comment out these ones because we haven't done saving for them yet. Like that. Okay, so script load is going to do load player, and script save is going to be save player. Save cleanup doesn't have anything just yet, so let's clean up the player save. If file exists, player.sav, file delete, player.sav. Okay, that's all we need for save cleanup right now. SCR save check. Here I'm going to say if file exists. So let's go to cleanup. Let's grab this again. If player save exists, return true. Then you can say return false. Okay. So if we have the player save, then it means the save does exist, therefore return true, and that's going to be changing our button, which we got in here, which does that. Okay, cool stuff. So let's test this out and see what happens. Now I'm only saving the player, which means the traps and the pellets and the score are all going to be reset whenever the player is loaded, but that doesn't matter, we can sort that out afterwards. So let's run this up and see what happens. So here we go, we've got the main menu. I'm going to open a folder here. Notice the path. C uses your username, app data, local, and the name of your project. To find this file, you can easily go into your Windows search and type in %appdata%, and that'll take you into your roaming folder, which you can then step one up to get into local to find your save games. So there's no save games in here, so that still says new game. If I create a new game, our player falls down from his start position, the traps are spinning, the pellets are bobbing about, and we can run around. Okay, so let's see. I'm going to jump. I'm going to push escape, which is then going to execute the save script, which is then going to execute script save player, which is then in turn going to send us to the main menu. And on create of the play button, it's going to display the continue subimage because we have a save that exists. So jump, escape, continue. If I bring up the folder location, here we go, player.sav. I'm going to open that up. So let's look in here. We've got a twirly bracket. We have terminal velocity :50, frick :9, vspeed :-3, falling :0, image speed :0, hspeed :0, direction :right, walking acceleration :0.4, running acceleration 0.8, and so on. So that's going to actually look something like this if we had to format it out. That is the JSON representation of our player object. Now JSON is a very, very powerful format. If there are any web developers watching this, I'm pretty sure you've used JSON at some point in time to perhaps communicate with APIs. Maybe you've used it to send information between clients and servers and things like that. It's extremely powerful and lightweight. I do suggest anyone who's not familiar with JSON to check out the resources I've placed in the description. Learn all you can about this wonderful format. It is absolutely wonderful, and the sooner you know how it works, the sooner you're going to be able to harness its power in all kinds of applications that you can possibly think of. Once we've saved our game, this string is going to represent our player. And when we decode it, we're going to use these key value pairs to recreate our player. So I'm going to exit this, don't save, let's keep it all mushed up there. And now we can say continue, and our player should still be airborne. Everything else should be the same, and we would have successfully loaded his state from earlier. So even if I push exit and I power down this PC and I come back in a year's time, I'll still be able to resume my game as if I never left. Continue. See? He was in the air. Pretty cool, huh? So I loaded him. And now I can run around and do things as if I never left. So what happens when he collides with this is going to be a trap. So there's our save. It exists. Player.sav. Let's now run into a trap. Okay, cool. Looks like we were sent to the main menu. This now says new game because, well, if it says new game, it means that the save doesn't exist anymore, which means it was successful in deleting that file. Let's open this up, and there we go. It's gone. It's been deleted, therefore no save game exists. So clicking new game starts a new game. So that about wraps up part 1 of Professional Game Save. I've decided to split this into 2 because this video is running a little long, and there are still some concepts that I need to show you. For example, what we did there is save one object. Now what happens when we want to save the state of the saw blades? I mean, there's multiple saw blades. Or when we want to save these pellets. I mean, there's multiple pellets. How do we know which one needs to go where? We need to loop over everything in existence in our game that we want to save, and we need to put it down where it was before, and then make sure there's no overlapping and nothing looks strange. So that's what part 2 is going to do. We're going to be using for loops and string manipulation to recreate all the objects in the room. So please feel free to comment, rate, and subscribe. If you want to play a really fun arcade game, check out Element Earth. There's a demo on the Google Play Store. It's free. You can also find the full version on the Amazon App Store. Within it, I used this very method to save all my asteroids at any point in time. And I can tell you there were hundreds of asteroids at some points in time, and it's running on mobile devices, and this worked flawlessly. You can find the project files so far in the description below. Please keep your eyes open for part 2. Both parts together will give you the power you need to save and load any sort of game you can think of. If you like this video as well as many of my other ones, please check out my Patreon campaign. I do appreciate your support. Feel free to like me on various social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, and stuff like that. And you can ask me any questions related to this that you can possibly think of, and I will be there to help you out. The project files for this tutorial are available free of charge in the description. Links are there. So until next time, happy coding, and I'll see you then.